Hello everybody, my name is Samuel Schaefritz. I am the intern here at Forsyth County Extension, and I am giving a summer project on herbs. It's a continuation series. The first part of it is cultivation, and I've released videos on that. And this is the second part. It's a continuation from the first part, and it's herbs that can be cultivated in this landscape in Forsyth that can also be used in different home dishes. I'm cooking, I'm doing a cooking demonstration today, and it's going to be a rice dish using coriander as the herb that I'm highlighting. And just to go over the ingredients, obviously we need the coriander. Rice, you can use long grain rice. We are using I'm using jasmine rice, although you can use it with basmati or brown rice or whatever rice you prefer. With jasmine, it's a 1-to-1 rice to water ratio. So we're going to use 1 cup of rice and 1 cup of water. We're also using turmeric, olive oil. These are shallots, salt, and I'm using chicken broth, but this can be substituted out for any broth that you prefer. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you can use any broth you choose. I'm using chicken broth for this dish. And we're cooking it in electronic programmable pressure cooker. And just some items, we need some measuring cups. With the pressure cooker, there is steam that is released, so just to be wary and cautious, we're going to use some oven mitts as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the shallots, because the shallots are going to get thrown in before all the other spices and the broth gets thrown in. So I cut the shallots in half. They're a lot like onions in the way they're cut, and that they have that papery texture that needs to get removed. After I've cut it in half, the shallots, then I cut the tips off. Removing the tips helps the paper kind of release, and then you can pull off, if you can't get the paper, I'm just pulling off actually the top layer of skin with the paper on it, instead of directly just removing the paper. And that saves time, and it's a little bit of food waste, but it's just a small thin layer, so it's not too much. I remove the shallots, and then they're going to get diced. And the way to dice them, when cutting anything that, it's a small grip, but you don't want to accidentally nick any of your skin. So I fold my knuckles back and I hold it in place with my knuckles, and I kind of use my thumb here as well as the inside of one of these fingers to hold it together. And I'm not separating it out, I'm just cutting slices down. And now I'm going to cut across. And they can be slow. Instead of chopping it, it's actually, I find it easier to go slowly slicing through the shallots. And that's good right there. And I always scrape things off with the dull end of the knife, not the sharp blade, but the other side of it. And this will prolong the life of your knife. It's not good to just slide it across. That'll dull the edge of the blade. Alright, so I have the shallots off to the side. Next thing, we're going to work on, and this is only if you're using what I'm using here, which is I'll hold it up close, the coriander is the whole seed itself and it's not been grounded. If you're using grounded coriander, obviously you can skip this step, but what we need to do is we're going to cut it, or not quite cut, but we're going to mush it and break it apart so it's smaller bits. And this recipe calls for 3/4 of a tablespoon. So I'm gonna measure it in my tablespoon. A little mess is not the worst thing ever. Okay. So there's multiple ways to crush this. I'm going to use the back of, or the side of the knife. I'm going to bring it over to the edge of the cutting board so that I can press down on it. Otherwise the handle doesn't allow it. So a mortar and pestle would actually be, we don't have one of these at the office, but those are great for crushing seeds. If you've never seen one of those, it's a like high-walled container with something shaped like a club that you press down. And those are good for crushing things, because if I put too much pressure down here, the seeds are going to fly everywhere. But the high walls of the mortar keep the seeds contained, and then the pestle is this good club that you can just ground it down. So I'm just going to be satisfied with where I'm at here, which is basically broken open the coriander seeds. Leave those out right there. And now I'm going to turn on the pressure cooker. And I'm just going to put it on saute. It's going to take a minute or so to get going. So we have been letting these shallots cook and get brown. I've only stirred occasionally. I've only stirred about, this is my second time in these past 3 minutes. They're starting to smell great. Once the aromas really kick in, then we could add in our coriander seed. And then we'll toss in our turmeric. And we only need about 1/4 of a teaspoon of our turmeric. Mix it all in. Smelling great. So the recipe I'm using today was given to me, I found it on a publication on epicurious.com, and the chef's name was Luca Travado. So we only need to let that cook for maybe a minute. That's about how long I've let it sit. And then we add some broth. We're going to do 1 cup of broth. I should actually, I'm going to turn this off. We're going to add in the rice. Again, we're using a 1-to-1 ratio. Part of my problem is that my measuring cup I'm using here was a little wet, so the rice is sticking. So it's okay though. And I just need a little bit more. I'm going to add in a little bit more broth just to submerge the rice. Just to be on the safe side. And then we need 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So that's 3/4 of a teaspoon. You can mix it in. Now we are going to manually adjust this and set a timer for 4 minutes. And we're going to put our lid on. And then we're going to seal it, and this should always be facing forward. And this is the valve that releases or holds the steam in. So we're going to hold the steam in so that it pressure cooks. And the timer's only on for 4 minutes, but this is going to cook like a regular rice dish, so it's going to take about 15 minutes. 10 minutes of this is going to be, we're going to let this pressure cooker decompress on its own. The other option is a release valve, but we're not going to use that in this recipe. So we're just going to let the pressure cooker cook and decompress on its own. And it's going to take about 4 minutes to cook. What you'll see is that this pink, it's like a column that comes up about this high, and it shows you that the pressure has amounted enough so it's going to start cooking. And once that happens, the timer will start. And if you notice, the timer hasn't started yet. We're still waiting for the pressure to build up. So once that happens, once this goes up, it's going to be 4 minutes. After 4 minutes passes, Then it's going to start decompressing, and that's going to take about 10 minutes. Alright, so now we've given it time, and it's taken about 11 minutes after the 4 minutes initially counted down for this to depressurize. And so this knob here has lowered down, indicating from its upright position, indicating that this is depressurized and it's ready to open. When opening a pressure cooker, you want to open it up away from your face. So steam will build up and it can shoot up, and you want to open it, if I'm standing behind this, I want to open it up in front of me so that the steam comes up. And I'm using 2 oven mitts, just to be careful. It turns, and it's actually got a knob right here. And you can see the steam is opening up, and it's coming up towards the camera, away from my face. Alright. Turn that upside down. And now I just want to check on the consistency of my rice. Oh, that looks perfect. And there we have our coriander rice. Now, coriander is the seed of the cilantro plant. So the entire plant is edible. Coriander is used more in Indian flavoring, South Asian dishes. It's used in curries and soups. And cilantro is very popular in Native American dishes. And it's an annual, not a perennial. It needs full sun or part sun to grow. And it doesn't get very tall. I think it grows about 1 foot. Maybe it'll get up to 1.5 feet in the garden. And here we have our own coriander rice.